Hello, my friends. It is I once more, Rob, here in the lair of OmnusI, for tonight's State of the Dungeon address. This game took place on October 12th, 2017. The game was Werewolf the Apocalypse in the Caribbean. So, all players were in attendance, and it was an interesting night, I will say that. The characters had been left off in the spiritual journey of Vlad, the young Shadow Lord who had recently recovered his memory and had done a few ignominious things along his spiritual journey. The goal was to get to the River Erebus to reverse the spiritual vampirism that he was suffering from, an inward curse, and through the power of the Silver River that flows through the Umbra, he would be cleansed of that if he could just survive the challenges up to it and then survive the dunk in the river. It hadn't been the most auspicious of starts, and when we picked up, he had just burst through a doorway, which appeared as a sheet of flame. He had barged through, and he was facing down a large, relatively featureless room with a large portcullis at the far end and a chest full of gold and loot and a large angry dragon swooping at him. So, when we started off, he needed to roll because the dragon was breathing fire at him. He rolled pitifully. No successes. So he was at ground zero. I asked for him to make a silk roll. If it was possible to botch, he would have. The dice completely abandoned him. And I told him, your character is a pile of glowing ash. The fastest character kill I think I've had in a role-playing game to date. About 2 minutes into the start of the game. After the recap and everything. So, well, he died. But, per the rules of the challenge, Grace went back and asked if there was anything they could do, and they were given an out. A possibility that if one of them could give an eloquent reason why he should be allowed to try again, they could express that, and if it was convincing, the dragon might spare him. So, Nikolai came forward and said that he was a good warrior who... can't remember the exact terms that he used. But at any rate, he made his roll. He rolled a willpower enough to believe it and strongly represent it, and then he rolled a charisma and performance check to convince the dragon. And he had a pretty good line. He succeeded. The dragon restored him to life. And so he turned and he's like, oh, wow. Dragon's like, you should thank him, but we haven't finished business. Breathed at him again. This time he survived, and he pulled out his gun and he tried shooting with that massive hand cannon he has. Literally a cannon, basically like a tonfa. And he shot at it, and he missed. Again, the dice were terrible. The dragon is a large target, even though that thing doesn't have sights or anything like that. It wasn't a difficult test, and he, again, rolled too many ones. The roll went south. So, the dragon was not amused and swooped down and slashed him to ribbons. So then the question came down. Does anybody else have anything to say to vouch? He wasn't going to let Nikolai do it again. He needed somebody else to say something. The other players kind of looked at each other. Nikolai, thought on his feet. But the others were like, we really can't think of a lot of things that we really liked about Vlad. Vlad caused us a lot of trouble. He shot off his mouth, got into unnecessary fights. There were some issues going on there. Again, Vlad is being played by a young man who does not have a great deal of experience in gaming, and he's trying new things. It's actually very refreshing playing with somebody who doesn't stick to predictable tropes and plays everything extremely safely. It's nice to have a little breakup every now and again. So, Grace, the NPC, the Bonar Philodox, said, well, we just got finished with a session, but, said something very nice about him. It was not entirely true. There was a little bit of wink, wink, nudge, nudge going on. But all the same, it was a pretty solid reason that... she claimed that he had moved up relations between the Were-Rats and the Guru by basically joining their organized crime syndicate, but the dragon didn't need to know that. So, she rolled. She's brilliant at negotiations. She's very good at being a Philodox. So, dragon gave him another chance. So, he looked around, and again, there was no other real features. So he ran to the chest, figuring that had to be some sort of a clue on how to get past this dragon. He got there and saw that the chest had a sword in it, lots of jewels and gold, and it was a rich treasure. And the dragon didn't seem to be so eager to flame him anymore. It was being very reserved, trying not to damage the gold. So he jumped into the chest after taking another wound. Or no, actually being narrowly missed, because the dragon was being very conservative with his blows, so we wouldn't damage the chest. So he jumped into the chest, started burrowing into the gold. At the bottom he found a trap door. The problem was there was still a lot of gold in the chest. He closed the lid of the chest to try to keep the dragon away. But there was no latch or handle on the inside of the chest, so the dragon just opened it up, grabbed him, picked him up, tried biting him. That didn't work. He actually dodged that. But he didn't think of any other means that he might have had of getting out of its grasp. So it just basically closed its claw and let its claws just tread him, destroying his torso. That was another death. So there were 3 people left in the pack who could speak for him. Peter, Aiden, and Nathan. All were present. So Peter says, we fought demons, which they did. And Vlad fought alongside of us bravely, which he did. Not that they had a lot of choice, they were kind of stuck in it all, but there really was no chance for Vlad to do anything less than honorable in that situation, but that really didn't need to be known to the dragon either. He still fought creatures that most others would quail at. So the dragon, again, gave him another chance. And this time again, he's like, I could try to shoot him. That's not going to work. So he tried running around the dragon to get back at the chest. And the dragon is kind of getting annoyed at this point. He ran around and was scratching at he was trying to destroy the chest. He figured if the dragon had value in it, he started to attack it. He scratched at it, spending his rage, doing everything he could to attack the chest. In the next round, the dragon picked him up, killed him again. The dragon had proven that it was a foe that really could not be stood against in combat. So he had all those chances to try to figure out something else. So he was dead once more. Actually, he was shredded again. So this time, Nathan said, well, he taught us how to sail. And I'm like, that wasn't entirely true. But he did show you some things about it. And for the most part, that wasn't really noble or heroic, but I decided to let him roll. It was going to be an extremely tough test. The willpower test would require 9s or 10s. The actual performance roll would be based on if he got any successes or not. He rolled, got a 10 on the first try, got a pair of 9s on the second. I'm like, that's close enough. This dragon is really irritated at this point. But okay, we'll go with it one more time. He closed the chest. He let Nikolai raise him back up again. He basically stopped the soul from escaping, and Nikolai's mother's touch basically got him back up. And he bolted around the dragon again. The dragon had shut the lid. He runs over, opens the lid, dives into the treasure chest again. The dragon opens the chest. There he is. Did the exact same thing. Reached in, grabbed him out. Gone. And he went over to Aiden, said, you're the last one. What do you have to say? Aiden's like, you know what? I'm not going to put him through any more torment. Thus ended Vlad. So, had a player character death. That also obviated the need to go to the River Erebus. None of the others were going to go there for spiritual cleansing or any other major maiming or dark blot on their characters. So it was up to Vlad's player to make a new character, while the rest of them were deciding what to do with themselves. They were allowed to go out through a back passage, which brought them back to the near Umbra. From thence to decide what they were going to do. So, once again, they had to rehash the same issues that they had been going through before. Do we find some way of taking the dagger, maybe finding some way to take it back to the Silver Fangs? Hopefully that won't lead to the death of Nikolai. But Aiden was pretty sure that if they brought him back, with him bonded to the dagger, the White Paws would make sure that Nikolai died so they could get the dagger back. Because they didn't hold the life of a child of Gaia in any great esteem. The other option was to go out into the deep Umbra on another quest to try to find the mystic scepter that the Silver Fangs had lost, that again guaranteed their right to supremacy over the Guru nations. Something I came up with. That was their idea of having a bartering chip, so that they could say to the Silver Fangs, we bring you this in exchange for the Phoenix Dagger, which we can't give to you. But they had a Talon, and Aiden had an idea. From talking to him prior, I knew he had this idea before, so this wasn't a surprise to me. It was to everyone else, though. It shows how devious that Aiden's player can be. Like, we do have an ointment. And playing the role of Grace, I'm like, the ointment that brings people back from the dead? And he's like, yep. That dagger is bonded to you as long as you're alive, Nikolai. And then all of a sudden Nikolai's player realized what was being proposed. And he's like, what? You want to kill me so you can take the dagger? Yeah. That's basically what he's proposing. Long story short, Nikolai was not eager to go through with this and wasn't sure if it was even going to work. So they kind of nixed that idea. While they were struggling over it, Phoenix was looking out for Nikolai, and his familiar spirit was a little phoenix while he was holding the dagger. So it whispered, this might be a good time to summon Phoenix. So he did. Pumped a bunch of gnosis into it, so he summoned a good, strong, very powerful phoenix spirit. And Phoenix said, I know what you're planning, and it's not my wish that Nikolai dies here. He will not have fulfilled what I want done with the dagger. So you have a choice, don't you? You can do my will and trust that I know what's best for the dagger, for you, and for the greater plan that is fate. What's going to happen. Trust to my prophecy, the dagger will be in better hands. Or you can decide that your will and what you want takes precedence. It's not a loaded decision, but the Phoenix knew that they're worried about themselves dying pointlessly. Aiden doesn't want his packmates to die. There's a lot that went into it. There's a lot of deep searching as all the different characters tried to consider things from their points of view. One of the best things about role-playing games is that it's not just I roll to hit. It's what would my character think in this situation? Can I get out of this in any good way? And, what would my character really do? So they were all kind of wrestling with that, which was nice to see. Talking things out, rationing things together. And finally, they just kind of... Phoenix said, all right, I'll tell you what. You have two choices here. You can do my will, or you can do your own thing. Whatever that is. I can tell you that if you do what I want to do, you won't have the dagger very long. It's not a burden that you're destined to bear for a great deal of time. Just put it forward on its way to who it's supposed to go to, and then you'll deal with whatever other fallout, but I guarantee you I will leave you a way out that you will not die futilely. And Aiden's like, I can't trust that. I don't know your intentions. And I doubt that you have my pack's interests at heart. It looks like there's one way to find out. I can give you a peek into my mind, and I can let you see just for a glimpse what exactly is at stake here. While Phoenix is very powerful, he's also not about overriding free will in the way I'm characterizing Phoenix. As a concept, as an incredibly powerful, Celestine being. So Aiden's like, okay. Phoenix is like, I could burn you from the inside out and drive you mad. I'll risk it. Okay. Phoenix, roll your willpower, Aiden. He rolls 110. The rest was gibberish. I'm like, okay, well, he didn't botch, so he's not dead. He's also not going to come away from this unscathed. So basically he got the whole story. He saw multiple possibilities for what's going to happen in the far future, including a few leaked ones about, the apocalypse setting and stuff. He saw things from the very early parts of time. He saw parts of history where things that he had held true were shattered as he found out the actual truths of what would have happened. He also saw, stories that have gone unnoticed except by the cosmos itself, and heroes who never got their proper due. And it left him staggered. He doesn't remember most of it, if any. But he understood that Phoenix has got a big picture game going. It's not about one person or two people, and he's not into manipulating those people. He just sees where the way things are, and then offers whispers and hints and prophecies to try to draw things together and maintain the balance of creation. He doesn't even always play sides. It just so happens that the side of Gaia is usually the side that will preserve things the best. So Aiden's like, okay, we'll do your work. Finn's like, great. All you have to do is cut your hand, Nikolai, shed a little blood with the dagger, and the dagger will lead you to where you need to go. He's like, great, we need to take a break before we do that. So they went to the palace realm of Phoenix. A little something I created. And the little Phoenix spirit tricked him into stabbing his hand with the dagger, so he took some damage because he thought it was funny, and he wanted more blood, so that would give him more power as a sacrifice, which he successfully did. Stabbed himself in the hand, summoned the portal to the palace realm, which they were a little afraid they'd worn out their welcome because they'd spent an extended time there before, but they needed it. They were tired and beat up and stuff, and they recovered their willpower and gnosis much faster there. Time also goes a little bit differently. So they jumped in, and in Nikolai's bedroom is where he found the tall, strong, Nordic-looking person sleeping in his bed, which turned out to be Vlad's player's new character, who, as of yet, I'm not sure of the name. However, I do know that he's a Getafenris Hamid Arun, so a butt kicker of the first water. That also makes him the second Getafenris Hamid Arun in the party. It's just that it's that Nathan has faded so much into the background, you hardly know you got another Getafenris. And personality type seems to be professional jerk. Not a pleasant person to be around. So we'll see how that works out. The group, if he persists in that, can exercise their right to kick him out of the pack. So hopefully he reins it in and is a useful member of the group. They agree to take him on board. And we kind of hand-waved over the whole, you can join us. Better than sitting around this palace all day without anything to do. So they then decided they're going to follow the dagger. And went a little story where they very quickly traveled. I wanted this to go quick. We'd already spent too much time on the side mission. So they first got to the Mississippi River. And they swam the Mississippi River. And they bumped into some manatees. And they did not react in a combat sense, which was kind of the test of the challenge, to see if they slaughtered these relatively harmless creatures. And there was an Octena who was observing them to see if they were going to attack his spirit totem, the manatee. And if they did, he was going to call down lightning upon them. It didn't happen. They just walked right by the Octena. He didn't challenge them, couldn't speak their Hamid language, and they didn't care to talk to him in wolf language. So they just went on. And they traveled across the plains extraordinarily quickly, the dagger pulling them on, until they hit the mountains, the Rockies. They turned south, and eventually they came to a Pueblo village. Adobe homes, small, not very powerful looking. Nothing that really drew the eye except the alienness of it to their cultures. So they went in, just as not knowing the situation, through the Umbra, and they saw that it was guarded by spirits, and there was a large number of strange and exotic spirits to them. Drawing on some of my knowledge of Native American mythology and lore, I cited several of the strange spirits and demigods and such of their different cultures. So they saw a lot of wonders, but when they were looking at the village, all they saw inside was one older woman, just meditating in the Umbra. So they pop out of the Umbra and decide they're going to announce them. First of all, they go up and they meet the guardian spirits. There is a mountain lion and there is a bear spirit standing guard. And they talk to the bear spirit, because Nikolai could do that. And he says, well, this village is under our protection. And they're like, we don't mean any harm. We've just come for a delivery. And the spirit's like, oh, I recognize Phoenix's mark upon you. You may pass, but we'll watch you. If you try to hurt these people, we will attack you. Okay, no problem. So they pop out of the Umbra, and they move up, and they see that in the real world there's a couple of coyotes, depending on how you pronounce it, who were looked awfully civilized, and there were a large number of the indigenous people. So when they pop out, one of the coyotes, who is kind of looking nervous and alert, lopes over towards them and then turns into a warrior of these people with a long spear with an obsidian head. And instantly I could see that different people didn't really know the significance of this, but they were being called upon to surrender this artifact to the Nuisha, who are the were-coyotes. And they are not seen as a very noble changing breed to the werewolves. The werewolves consider themselves superior in the vast majority. The were-coyotes are the tricksters of the changing breed, and it's said that they were created to keep Gaia laughing, to amuse her, and to run errands and things. I mean, they're not complete jokes, but they're not as excessively combat driven as the werewolves. They have other purposes. So he comes over, clearly one of the Nuisha, and knowing that he had sent to the true form, so he could tell they were werewolves, and he knew that if they wanted to destroy the town, there was nothing he could do about it. He would sell his life, but at the same time, the spirits that were guarding put him on alert, but did not warn him. So when they just appeared, so Nikolai thought, well, I need a spirit to communicate. He racked his brains and came up with coyote. Seems so obvious, but he's like, what's the best one? I'm like, well, coyote. That's their totem. So he summoned a coyote spirit. And as he was summoning it, the old woman appeared, and she came over, and she helped him with the rite of summoning when she saw what he was trying to do. And she advocated for him to coyote that these Gru have come here, and they're summoning you. They clearly want to talk to us. And Coyote's like, really? Okay, well, I can make this happen. But you're going to have to wear garb of the people here for my magics to affect you. And he sent the old woman off to get a group of dresses for the proud Guru. That would be something that their women would wear. And they realized that the warrior who was guarding against them, he was basically just wearing a loincloth. They're in the Southwest America. It's very hot, and it's very arid. So the clothing was more minimal. And they're all like, Coyote's making us wear dresses to get this done. They weren't happy with that. Peter actually rationed out, well, I'm a warrior because I'm a guru. I want to dress like your warriors. So he accepted a loincloth instead. Sure, why not? So now they're, Europeans all, who are dressed in either dresses or loincloths. And they get an immediate viewing of the person they're supposed to hand it to. He's an 11-year-old boy of the Nuisha. And they're like, well, who is he? She's like, well, he's the son of our Nightcaller, which they rationed out was a kind of a shaman theurge who welcomes the moon back to her rest after the night is over. And so they basically sent Nikolai over. Nikolai's like, okay, well, I'm sorry I'm going to ruin your life now, but you're supposed to have this. And the young man was, very knowledgeable. Everybody in the village was kinfolk, so he kind of knew the score. And he's like, oh, I sense Phoenix in this, because he is enlightened. The young theurge on his own, he's already somewhat knowledgeable, and I rolled well. So he takes the dagger. He suddenly gets a column of fire down upon him, and he comes out of it, and his eyes are golden, and he's looks like he's learned a great deal in a short amount of time. He's like, "Thank you. You have done Coyote's work, or you have done Phoenix's work. So, well done. Things will be good now." For turning this over, the group found themselves more resistant to fire. They have Phoenix's favor, so difficulties to soak fire one less for them. Their eyes also can flare golden, which is a sign if they are dealing with spirits. If they're trying to exert their will, they get a +2 bonus dice to social rolls. So that was kind of a nice thing for them. They didn't have to, find a way to do it, so they got rewarded. And Phoenix created a Phoenix Bridge, which is faster than a Moon Bridge, because basically they got on it and got launched. And they finally found themselves back at the island where the whole campaign started, where they first met Gloriana, their totem, and fought vampires and so on. They appeared, and they found that the villagers had been remaking the old ruined castle that they had first been pulled into. And the leader of these people was a young woman who basically is now kind of the avatar of Gloriana. She's powerful enough that she can possess a human who has been touched by magic, which all of these villagers were the slaves of the vampires who were there. So she finds it fairly easy to manipulate them. She told them that the boat that they came in on is still here. The one that is driven by the angry ghost of a woman by vampiric magics. They could exploit that if they want. Otherwise, there's a perfectly functional sloop that was left there, and they didn't ask the circumstances that it got left there, probably for the best. But needless to say, they are once again in the Caribbean, so my Werewolves of the Caribbean story is back in the Caribbean. But they've decided that they're going to go back up to Plymouth to hash things out with Pa Whitepaw. That'll be interesting. However, this story will continue. The characters got a chance to buff up a little bit, and we'll learn more about the new character in the group next week, or next time we play. That is basically what happened. It was an eventful night. So, I am Rob. You're in the lair of OmnusI. That was my State of the Dungeon. And I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you continue watching, and that you have many profitable adventures yourselves. Thank you. Farewell.